About to get into another spoiler free movie review. If you're watching on YouTube, where I post all my individual movie reviews, I am not wearing sleeves in honor of Dom Toretto. I have a love hate relationship with Fast movies. I haven't really expected them to be good since probably Fast 7, the last one with Paul Walker. And now they are just big, fun, dumb movies, and that is why I love them. Somebody asked me, why do I like Fast and the Furious movies when I myself drive a Ford Focus? And I remembered that Fast and the Furious movies used to be focused on what? Oh, street racing. They have come so far from that, where I don't know if they are part superhero, if they are part just big soap operas. The way I think about it is they're almost like WWE wrestling. You don't watch WWE wrestling because you want to watch good old sports. I don't care that it's quote unquote fake. I watch it because it's entertaining. That is why I watch Fast and the Furious movies. That is why I was still excited about this one. And going into it, I didn't know if I was going to see this one and think I'm completely done. Because to be honest, after Fast 9, I was a little bit over it. I think probably after Fast 7, that was like the last real legit good Fast and the Furious movie. And now they are almost just over the top and comedic and very self aware. So I don't really go into it watching for the plot. I don't go into it wanting anything to make sense. So going into this one, I was thinking, as long as it's just entertaining, big dumb fun, that is all I want it to be. So the same reason I watch wrestling, the same reason when I was home at my parents' house recently, why she watches novelas. It's not the best acting, it's not the best storyline, but there's something just comforting about them. But Fast X did deliver on that account. It did remind me, though, how big of a pop culture event these movies were when they came out back in the early 2000s. It sparked a culture among teenagers buying their first cars ever. Now they wanted to get big, souped up race cars that they couldn't afford. You couldn't afford that $500 payment, kid. And even me, it sparked me wanting to get a car magazine. I don't know anything about cars, and for some reason, I was just so interested in looking at rims and looking what's underneath the hood. And if I could get a NOS tank in my car, my life would be set. These movies have come a long way since then. And Fast X, kind of in a way, got back to his roots. So, what this movie is about, it's really centered around the villain, which I think is what helped this movie be more entertaining. And you have Jason Momoa playing the son of a kingpin that Dom and Paul Walker robbed money from in a previous Fast movie. So there's that connection at the very beginning of the movie. And I think Jason Momoa's character in this is what the franchise needed. A good villain and a cheesy, over-the-top, very extra villain, and he played it so well. I think that is what made this movie so enjoyable, because in action movies, in fast movies, sometimes you always just have this big villain who is very cheesy at his core, but they try to come off as being very intimidating and very cool, and you want to hate them, but it's just so cheesy you don't really buy into it. But Jason Momoa's character in this movie is kind of like Joker inside of a Cracker Jack box. He just wants to see the world burn, essentially, and he is not only trying to get revenge on Dom, but his whole thing is he doesn't just want to kill Dom. He wants to make Dom suffer and everybody in this movie suffer. So he has this sense of anarchy. He's not just trying to unleash havoc and destroy their cars and destroy their world. He wants to make their world burn as he takes them down. So I kind of like that they did that. This character who you hate but also kind of enjoy at the same time, and Jason Momoa plays it so well, so over the top, so extra, from his fashion choices, from the way that he speaks, from his mannerisms. I wouldn't say Heath Ledger Joker vibes, but maybe the Joker in the animated Batman. That's kind of what I felt like his inspiration was. So I found it enjoyable. And then you have Dom, the main character, the good guy, which after watching this movie, I'm not convinced that he is that good of a guy. If you look at Jason Momoa's villain character motives in this movie and Dom's motives, I'm not sure they're that much different. So I'm not sure any of the Fasters are the actual good guys in this. When you consider how much collateral damage they made in this movie, you have this bomb rolling through Rome on fire. And yes, they are the good guys trying to stop it, but everything they do to try and stop it almost causes as much damage as the bad guy here. I also wonder a lot of things about the Fasters. The Fasters, that is what I call all the quote unquote good guys in this movie. Ludacris, Tyrese Gibson, Michelle Rodriguez. To me, they are the Fasters. I question their motives after this. I also question how exactly they make money. I know there's some references in this movie to their accounts getting drained. I really don't know how you make money saving the world through drag racing. I would like to get a look at their financial records when they sit down and do their taxes. I also wonder why their cars never require gas. And it feels like in the Fast movies, they don't pay attention to any of the laws of physics, science, everything goes out the window. I feel like even in superhero movies, there are some rules and restrictions that they follow. In this movie, nothing matters. You can fly off a cliff and land, and the tires don't explode. Everything is all cool because you are the good guy. I also wonder, and I'm not sure why Brie Larson was in this movie or Charlize Theron. There are a lot of pretty big, noteworthy actors in this that don't have to do a Fast movie. Earlier, I was talking how some actors, I feel like it's a badge of honor to be in a Wes Anderson movie. It's really good actors doing a smaller budget movie. So I feel like maybe it's the opposite case of actors also like being in big blockbusters that everybody is going to talk about, and you don't really have to use any of your acting abilities in. So I wondered why them two in particular were in this movie, and how the majority of this cast has been around throughout the entire franchise. And honestly, some of the actors in this, it's really the only time they get work. So I actually like the Fast franchise for that reason, for being loyal, because it is about family. And they keep around these actors when they could just switch them out, get cheaper actors, or even get better actors. But it's cool that like Ludacris and Tyrese Gibson continue to get work on this scale. So even though their acting abilities are so limited, and I don't even find them to be that great of comedic actors. And in a franchise where it feels like they probably wrote the script with ChatGPT, what they lack on the page, they make up for with all the crazy action, because at 2 hours and 21 minutes, this movie sped by for me. Usually around the hour mark, I'm already thinking about, okay, how's this movie going to wrap up? How's it going to get to the falling action in the third act? But in this movie, with all the high flying action, I never found myself being bored. And that is saying something about the Fast and the Furious movies. They are so incredibly entertaining. And there's just something about watching a chase scene, something about watching these very ridiculous things happen that just really sucks you in and keeps you there and really allows you to escape reality. And that is what I look for in a big summer blockbuster movie. And the Fast movies did it really well here. Not so much in Fast 9, because I felt like in that one, they kind of jumped the shark in that, especially with going to space, especially with the big opening scene in that movie. This one, in a way, felt a little bit more grounded in reality. Now, not a whole lot more grounded. Yes, they do disregard some of the basic principles of physics, but I could kind of see some of these things happening, despite the fact that with all the shrapnel and fire and flames that Dom doesn't even get a scratch on him, that is kind of where they lose me a little bit. But I felt like this one, like I said earlier, it got a little bit back more to their roots. Even with the cars, I think my favorite car out of this entire movie was the one that Charlize Theron's character drove. It was a DeLorean, so like a Back to the Future DeLorean with the doors that come up like gull wings. I thought that was a very unique car to be featured in this movie. If you weren't paying attention, you may have missed that one. The second favorite car was the one Tyrese Gibson's character drove. It was a gold Lamborghini, and I've never been a fan of Lamborghinis, but it was so extra and so over the top and so sparkly. I thought that was a really cool moment, and it's very rare in any movie that I get excited about a car being driven. But I felt like that was reminiscent of the early movies where you really did pay attention to that. This one got me thinking about the cars more, so I think it reminded me a lot more of the first time I saw The Fast and the Furious. And then it goes back to all the basic things that you expect out of a Fast and the Furious movie, highly focused on family, and the whole thing Jason Momoa's character is threatening Dom with is you have all this family, but you can't protect them all. How are you going to choose? And all throughout the movie, there are these different situations where who are you going to save? You love both of these people. Now you got to make the decision. So I felt like him in that mentality was a good kind of mind game from Dom. And honestly, Vin Diesel in this movie was my least favorite thing. I just found myself questioning his character more and more. I don't even think he is that good of a dad to put his son in these situations. I feel like if child services wanted to come after him, they would easily be able to take his son away from him. And there were just certain things that I found off about his character. I kind of find him to be a little bit of a creep. One of his things that he does all the time is just stares at old pictures. That is all he does. And he talks so comedically low that it almost felt like Vin Diesel was a caricature of himself, talking so low. It was almost hard for me to understand him at times. So maybe he's just really playing into that. At one point, I just wanted him to go into Groot, like I am Groot, like do that. People would freak out with that crossover. The movie did feel a little bit more self-aware. And if you wonder if you have to see any other Fast and the Furious movie going into this one, you really don't. You don't have to put yourself through that. There is one scene that feels very self aware in this movie, and they reference all the things they have done, kind of like a quick recap of the entire franchise, how it went from them just being street racers to moving on to heists and stealing from 18 wheelers, and then where they've gone from there. So it does a little reset. If for some reason you need backstory on this, it's just so big, dumb, and fun that I don't think you have to overthink it. So if you just want to go into this one completely blind, I think that is totally fine. The other thing I felt was lacking a little bit in this movie was the soundtrack. With a movie that has had one of the biggest song moments in the last 10 years, with See You Again being such a global hit and used so well with that last movie with Paul Walker, I feel like in this soundtrack, they just kind of went to a sound library and drug over a bunch of songs that were public domain or royalty free and just kind of dropped them in. There was one song that I felt even came in at the wrong time. Like they had fully exported this entire movie and we're like, oh crap, we kind of messed up there. Let's keep it in. And my other question I had, all of these evil people want Dom dead. And in this movie, you get a look at where Dom lives. Dom doesn't even have a ring cam. He lives in a normal neighborhood. And to think that all these people are trying to murder him and it's so easy just to break into his house, like how have they not done that? They're like, join the list of people who want to take out Dom. Dom's door is unlocked. You could go right now. He's just in the back having a barbecue, drinking a Corona. So I would say that these movies, I know they're going to wrap up with the next one coming out not next year, but the year after that. With Dom being my least favorite part about this movie, they could easily continue these movies without Vin Diesel. And the last question I had after watching this movie is, what is up with all the titles to these movies? It started out in 2001, The Fast and the Furious. Great movie title. It's sexy. You know exactly what you're getting going into this movie. Then they downgraded a little bit in 2003 with Too Fast, Too Furious, just using the number. It was kind of like they asked the director's kid, hey, what do you want to name this movie? Too Fast, Too Furious. All right, we'll use it. And then in 3, it's The Fast and Furious. So they eliminated the "the" and it's Tokyo Drift. That came out in 2006. It's all right. But then in 2009, it's just Fast and Furious. Like they're remaking the first one, take out the, let's run it again. And then in 2011, you just get Fast 5. So they are no longer Furious. But then in 2013, it's Fast and Furious 6. So no, the Furious is back. Okay, that's cool. And then in 2015, it's just Furious 7. No longer Fast, they're just Furious. That sounds like an entirely different franchise. And then in 2017, it's The Fate of the Furious. That makes no sense. So they are just Furious now, and it's the Fate. Okay. Then you have Hobbs and Shaw, whatever, that's fine. And then you have F9, the Fast Saga from 2021. So that was just like, hey, look at the keyboard. What's your favorite key on your keyboard? I really like this F9, this function button. Let's name it that. So the entire branding in this franchise makes completely no sense. And then in Fast X, they throw in a Roman numeral when they've never used Roman numerals before. And they completely missed the mark. This movie should have been called Fast 10, the number 10, your seatbelts. But I will say, the thing I was the most surprised by after watching this movie is I was left wanting more. I didn't want the movie to end because when it ends, you want to know more. That is all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil anything. But Fast X will leave you wanting more. It delivered on the action. It fumbled on the acting. It was almost like the requirement to be in a Fast movie is, do you have muscles? Yes. Are you very tan? Yes. Can you act? Yes. Okay, well, that's going to be a problem. Take away those acting lessons and we'll put you in the movie. Aside from that, and aside from Dom completely being a total caricature of himself and being totally off the rails. It did deliver on a very high level of being an entertaining movie. That is all I wanted this Fast movie to be, and it felt a little bit less cheesy by buying into making the villain so kooky and off the wall and kind of funny and over the top. So I think that is what saved this movie. Jason Momoa, we need more of him. We need more fast action. So for Fast X, I give it 3.5 out of 5 burnouts.